You think you know the story. You've heard it 100 times. But this is not the tale that you know, for this part of the story has yet to be written. Join Flash, Harley, and X-Force 11 as they take the Wave Rider into the near future and check in on some old friends. This is the new adventures of Superman and Lois, as chronicled by tomorrow's Legends.
Hello, Legendaires! Welcome back to Tomorrow's Legends. We are excited to be bringing you another side mission on the Wave Rider as we find ourselves grounded just outside of Metropolis in a small farming town called Smallville, where we will be covering the first season of the all-new Superman and Lois. I am the fastest man alive, and I don't care what Superman says. I am the Flash.
And I'm wondering why I let you bring me to this boring little town. It smells like cows. Ew. And why is hay stuck in my hair? I'm Harley Quinn.
And we have a guest on the show to help us take on this new adventure. You've heard him plenty with his weekly feedback for Stargirl and Legends, and you may know him from Gotham Undercover. He's now being recruited as a legend, and he's joining us on the bridge of the Wave Rider. It is X-Force 11. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for picking me up from Sector 1111. Sinestro had me trapped, and y'all got me out of it. So thank you so much. And landing in Smallville, it looks a little different now. The people look a little bit different than the last time I was here. So it will be interesting to see what's going on with these new folks in Smallville.
That is true. It is. How many years has it been since Smallville?
You're asking the wrong person.
10? Is it 10 years maybe? Something like that? Because of Arrow went for 8 seasons, and it started a year after Smallville ended. So yeah, I guess we're probably pushing about 10, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, wait a second. There is one more person aboard with us.
Hello, Legends.
We are on the Wave Rider. Gideon is here for this new journey. We got some... Let's talk about the new show, Harley. Like, we might have some new listeners coming on board for this because, Superman, it's a brand new show and they're maybe checking us out.
Yes, it is a brand new show. So first off, we'd like to welcome our new listeners. It is nice to have you aboard. Thanks for checking us out. We're excited for this little offshoot into Superman and Lois. And I just thought, for new people, maybe we could give the benefit of kind of explaining our culture. I mean, I know a lot of the originals, a lot of our legends that we're used to hearing are used to our culture of superhero names, but newer listeners may not be used to that. So kind of what we do here on Tomorrow's Legends is we each kind of come up with our own superhero alias. As you've heard, I'm Harley Quinn. We have the Flash, we have X-Force 11, and you'll hear all of our wonderful feedbackers. You'll start to hear their superhero names as well. So just kind of wanted to give everybody a little bit of intro into that. And if you don't have a superhero name, definitely write in or tweet us or Facebook us. We will help you come up with one. Martin is much better with the names than I am, but our community is more than willing to jump in and help you pick one out. So that's kind of what we are all about. And then just as a reminder, we cover 3 CW shows now. It's pretty exciting. We, of course, started with Legends of Tomorrow, hence the name Tomorrow's Legends. We recently covered Stargirl and we'll continue with season 2. And now we've picked up Superman and Lois since till recently we had no idea when Legends was coming back.
But that's right. I mean, we're growing, we're expanding. The thought behind it was that we can't really call ourselves Tomorrow's Legends if we only cover one show. We need to grow, we need to expand. And to become a legend, you need to, increase your inventory, increase your catalog, I guess is a good way to put it. I know we talked about that last time we were on. So we're excited. We're really happy to be taking on a new show. And I think judging by how this first pilot episode kicked off, I think we were very lucky to land this one as part of our repertoire. And because of all the new tasks that need to be done, we thought we'd bring X-Force 11 in to help us out. He's a veteran and knows what he's doing, so he's going to be taking on some responsibilities and help us all out. And yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And it's exciting. It's an exciting venture for Tomorrow's Legends. We're growing.
Definitely. Yeah, it's fun because you think about the Legends history of going from Earth to Earth and time period to time period, and how they've gotten to see heroes from different eras and things like that. So it just plays well into the whole theme of things, of being able to go from one place to the other and cover what's going on. So it works well.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, it kind of works right into the whole scope and, fun story that we've created for the show.
That was our plan all along.
Yeah, we knew what we were doing. Well, since it's a new show and we're just getting started, there is some news to cover real quick about Legends and the CW universe as a whole. So let's get into that right away.
We interrupt this podcast for a special report.
All right, Harley, we got some news about how Superman and Lois did on its opening night.
We did. I'm actually going to throw this one over to Jeff because I think he put this in there.
Yes, indeed. So the 90-minute premiere averaged a 1.7 million total viewers, a 0.4 demo rating, with its first hour delivering the CW's largest audience in that time slot, 1.71 million in 2 years since Flash 5 episode 5 or season 5 episode 12. And it's the CW's second largest season or series premiere since Batwoman premiered in 2019. So wonderful numbers, and that doesn't even take into account showings elsewhere and the DVR numbers or anything like that. So just knocking down the gates. Everybody really wanted to see what Superman and Lois is going to be like.
Yeah, people think maybe 1.71 million isn't a lot, but for the CW, it's huge. It actually is really well a good number, because a lot of the shows right now aren't even getting 1 million viewers. So that's a great start.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's great news. So hopefully it'll continue to tick up from there.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I mean, the way this one, we're going to totally talk about it tonight, but the way this one started off, I think the numbers are going to grow. If word spreads like I think it is, we'll probably see higher numbers than that.
For sure.
Now some Legends news.
We do have some Legends news. Now, I think a lot of people have seen this. It's been all over Twitter and our Facebook group, but we'll cover it real quick here. Legends has already been renewed for a season 7, which was shocking to all of us, when season 6 until today didn't even have a release date. I think everybody was quite surprised by that, but it would seem that at least our main actors are probably contracted through 7 seasons, although we only have 2 of them left. And speaking of that, Dominic Purcell has officially announced that he will leave after season 7 because he had a 7-year contract. And I assume Katie also had a 7-year contract. Now, I don't know if we'll get an 8th season, but he's at least in it for the long haul.
Yeah. And like you said, it was surprising because we didn't even know what's happening in season 6 yet and whether it's going to be successful or not. And yet here they are announcing a season 7. So they must have a story in mind. They must have a plot point that they want to get through in order to get that next season. Yeah. And then as for Dominic, like I want to ask, like, is he really done? All he really did was state that he's living up to his contract. He might sign for more. If they want to do another season, he might come on board. All he really said was, yeah, I'm just living out my contract. And that's, he didn't say I'm done.
I think it really depends on what the contract is, because if it's, we like to use you, you're going to pop up here and there. It's not going to be another extended contract. He may go for it, but if they say, okay, we need you to sign up for another, 7 years or 6 years. I don't know if he's up for that. He may want to pursue something else. So I don't know. Yeah. We'll see.
And he's a bit of a goofball on social media. He hates it. He loves mocking it and mocking all the people that cause trouble on there. So he might just be fooling with us too, and just wanted to see if it would spark anything. Knowing him.
I don't know. Yeah, I thought I had seen on his Instagram for some reason that he had said that he was done after 7, but I mean, I could be wrong. Like you said, it could just be him just, running the full length of his contract and him saying, I'm sticking with it through season 7, like I'm not going anywhere kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
I don't know.
exactly.
We'll find out.
I mean, look at what it brought up. I mean, that's probably what he wanted. It just sparks conversation and gets people talking, and it was all over the news. So, yeah.
Yeah. If you don't follow him on Instagram, he's worth following.
Yeah, he's pretty funny. Yeah, I mean, he's in your face. He does not care about what people think, and it's kind of fun.
No, he doesn't. All right, shall we shift over to a little bit of Stargirl news?
Yes, because this is fun. There's actually some news about a couple things about it, which I think is really fun. So, yeah.
Yeah, so super exciting for season 2 of Stargirl. We heard that Jay Garrick is going to appear. I don't know how that's going to work, but he will be there.
Well, she's on Earth too, right? So
yeah, but he was on pre-crisis Earth too. So that's wasn't he?
Yeah, he was, and it was a little different Earth too. But crisis happened. We think.
Well, I mean, Oliver fixed a lot of things, so who knows where he placed.
Yeah.
He must have placed.
There.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I just think this is such fantastic news because Jake Garrick and the actor John Wesley Shipp, he was just so much heart on the Flash. Like those first 2 seasons, he just brought the emotion and every scene he was in, and he was such a great. Maybe role model isn't the word, but just a great presence for Barry to get to go talk to and learn from. And like I said, the heart of the show. And he's such a fantastic actor and human being in person. When I met him down in Atlanta, when I met you, Jess, it's just the man's amazing. And I did see that.
You?
What's that?
Was I with you?
No, I was with the real Brian actually when we met him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We must have walked past him at some point. I don't know.
Probably.
I thought it was
He's a big man too. Like when I shook his hand, my hand just disappeared. He is not a small human being. But super friendly, just the nicest guy. And in fact, he's not showing up until episode 9. So we got to wait a little while. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah. So, but no, it's going to be fun. Going to be fun having him. I think he'll bring a lot to the show. It'll be interesting to see what kind of story they have in mind for him.
Yeah.
And then staying on Stargirl, it's not coming back until summer, I think is for sure what they've said this summer, but they still haven't given an exact date.
Yeah, no, the promo during Superman and Lois just said summer. I looked at the Instagram of the composer for Stargirl, who's done a lot of other superhero shows as well and movies, and she's still saying that she's working on stuff, and so it's still saying summer. Everything I'm seeing, so
okay,
so still a little up in the air there.
Well, that's okay. I mean, we found out about Legends. This is your next point here. Legends is premiering Sunday, May 2nd. And that's, like we said, that's a Sunday. So we're going to have Superman and Lois and Legends airing for about a month, maybe a month and a half at the same time. So that means our schedule's going to be pretty busy. We're going to have to figure out when we're going to record for Legends. Usually we like to do it 2 days after the show airs. So we'll have to see what goes on there, because if we record Tuesday night and we all want to watch Superman and Lois, it's going to make things a little bit tight.
Yeah.
I can still watch Superman and Lois and record, but that's because I'm 2 hours ahead of you.
That's true. Yeah, you guys can both do that, I guess. Yeah. So.
Yeah, that would mess you up a little, but
well, at least we know.
Yeah. But they did say that starting next week that the Flash will be on at 8 and Superman and Lois will be on at 9.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a change. So yeah.
That changes that whole plan. I was hoping they would stay in the 8 time slot and Flash would go to 9.
Yeah.
Not so much luck. Okay. Because Flash is a little darker this season. I figured they would flop him.
But it's also the more family friendly one. Like a lot of kids more relate to Flash than they would to from this premiere episode. Superman looks pretty serious stuff. I don't know if a lot of kids are going to be into it.
Good point. It's more of a teen kind of show. Slash
We'll
adult show.
But at least we got dates, May, because we were wondering about Legends. Is it going to be a summer show, but it's going to be a springtime show, so it's good.
It's good.
Exciting stuff. Well, let's get into the pilot. with our impressions of the show. Harley, why don't you kick us off for the very first one? What did you think?
All right. I gave this one 8.5. Parenting is hard, Clark, because it is. I thought the pilot was very, very solid. I think there's a lot of room that they're going to grow. So I didn't want to rate it too high on the first one out of the gate. I mean, things that I loved about it. I mean, I really liked that montage at the beginning. It totally sets the stage and the tone for the whole show. I thought that was extremely well done. And then after that, I mean, the whole episode, it was well paced. It kind of got us from Metropolis to Smallville, which was kind of when we started Metropolis. I was like, wait, hold on a second. Aren't we supposed to be in Smallville? And then they sort of set up the villain for Superman, or at least one of them, however this is going to work. And then I like that they tied in a villain for Lois as well. And I think it'll be interesting to see how Morgan Edge really plays into like everyone's storyline. But I like that out of the gate, they're kind of setting it up as a foil for Lois or something for like Lois to investigate and kind of sink her teeth into. So right. I loved that. I'm excited to see where the things go with the kids. They were a little moody for me this episode, especially in the beginning, but they're teens. That's expected. So anyways, overall, really solid pilot, really good pilot. So I'm excited.
Yeah. I know I'm there with you, although I'm gonna best your score and give it a 9.5. Best CW premiere to date. I know that's saying a lot, but I was really looking back at all of the premieres we had, and I don't know, this one just really, really rocked me off. I just want to say, oh, wow, that's how you start off a new show. I was hooked within 3 minutes. With the grounded, back to Smallville, this isn't a comic book show, it's a family drama that just happens to have superpowers in it type of feel. This made me realize that I'm going to be a little honest here. It actually made me realize I'm getting a bit tired of all the silliness and the goofiness of the other CW comic book shows. Because I think they're trying to be a little bit too comic booky in some areas, where this one settles for serious. This is what life is like for Superman outside the battles and powers type of storytelling. The music was absolutely fantastic, drawing you into every scene and moment. I was super impressed and excited to see where this perfect replacement for the loss of Arrow and its harder storytelling is going to take us. Up, up, and away. Here we go.
Very nice.
Nice. And so I picked the medium in between the two of you. I gave it 9 Smallville Grows Up. The pilot really sets the show up well, and that's what I was really impressed about, because I thought that it conveys that balance of work life, personal life balance that we've not really explored to the depth that we got in this episode. And I just really hope that they hold that depth going forward. And I do hope that they keep the depth in the marriage between Clark and Lois like they're doing. You know, it's not easy. It takes work. We saw a little bit of that in Stargirl, and they did it well. I'm hoping that they continue on with this. I really liked what you said, Martin, about this being about a family with people with superpowers. And I think that's going to set it apart, because you look at what Arrow was and the darkness, the hardness, the real world aspect of it. And then you take that and they learn from that, and they've added the family dimension in a way that I think is very different than it took all those seasons Arrow to get to. So I'm really looking forward to what they're going to do in this series.
Yeah, well said. That's what really stood out right off the bat, was how the family part of it is the focus point. Mm-hmm. And the superpowers and the action is the enhancements, basically. So I mean, I hope we get to hear in our feedback and stuff from people feeling the same. But I know I had Patty Spiv right beside me, and she was quite shocked at how good it was. So hopefully we'll hear from her in her own words.
Yeah. Yay. Yeah, no, it was, I agree. It was good. And I'm with you. I wasn't, expecting it to be, I guess, quite as family focused. So I was a bit pleasantly surprised by that. It was just a little different for me because I'm used to the opposite. So, but I'm excited to see where it goes. It was very good.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's get into where this episode did go. Let's get to our talking points. Where are you going to start us off with, Harley?
All right. I want to start just first off with kind of like the cinematography, and then we can kind of morph into that opening montage and set the whole stage for the pilot, because this show, it was just so beautifully shot and crafted. Like, it's amazing. It's a huge step up from like the standard CW stuff that we're used to. I mean, this was higher quality than Stargirl, and we thought Stargirl was a huge step up in quality from, like, I hate to say it, but like the Flash, Arrow, definitely Legends, especially in the past few seasons. Legends quality has just kind of, when it comes to like the special effects and those sorts of things, it's just kind of gone like way down. And I get it's a different feel, and that they're trying to make this like look different. And I think they've done an excellent job with it. Like, really, truly, it looked amazing.
Yep.
Yeah, I know that because of the partnership, the Warner Media, AT&T, the whole behind the scenes thing, that money is being given to this show, Stargirl, to Batwoman from HBO Max, since they're going to that service after they finish up. And so I know there's a partnership there. I am very curious to see what episode 2 is going to look like, because this was a pilot.
Yeah.
And so they've got to prove everything. They've got to make everything look very cinematic and draw people in. I just hope that we don't see a huge drop in episode 2. But yes, it was amazing. The cinematography was outstanding.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see for sure there, Jeff, if there is a drop or not. But I think with HBO, they've got money to throw around. Look what they did with Game of Thrones. So if they're even interested the slightest in this show, they're going to make sure they want it to look good, because if their name is attached to it, they won't have anything bad put out there. So so I'm really excited for it. And I'm totally with you guys. It seriously had a real cinematic edge to it. Like, everyone involved wants to show what they can do on a slightly higher TV budget than I think the other shows get. The cinematography was stunning. The lighting, the editing flow, the camera angles, everything was so beautifully done. The effects were top notch, like cinematic quality effects. And everything just looked so spectacular. Yeah, you just sat back. I felt like I was in a little movie theater watching a show. It was great.
Yeah.
I know, it was fantastic. And like the storytelling. So this kind of moves us into the opening montage here. I mean, I love that they use this opening montage as a way to bring everyone up to speed. It sort of reminds you of the classic story, but at the same time, it helped capture new fans. I mean, I'm basically like a new fan. I mean, I've watched many of the Superman films, but I didn't watch Smallville. I didn't read many of his comics. Like, I'm not as steeped in the lore. And I think it really did a good job of bringing everybody in, getting everyone invested. And it really set the tone for the show. It lets you know that it's not the story of how Clark met Lois. We've seen that. It's not the story of how Superman got his start on Earth. We've seen that. It's about their life together, their struggles, and the legacy that they're going to leave.
Yeah, I am totally with you. The opening sequence of the just little origin, it shows us their take on a story we all know, but then it seamlessly transitions to a part of the story that we don't know yet. Their life as parents, having twins, things we've never seen before. And I loved, if you were really paying attention, it included bits from Smallville, bits from Lois and Clark, bits from the Arrowverse. It kind of meshed them all together into an opening montage to create an origin for this version of Superman's story. And I just thought that was absolutely brilliant. And it just, like you said in your opening, the music and the way it was laid out, it gave you the immediate sense of what this show is going to be about and how it's going to be run on a completely different level, and a very serious and grounded level compared to the other CW shows.
Yeah, I love the fact that I posted the article in our group, but how many Easter eggs there were in this episode. They were live tweeting them. And so the folks that are into the Superman lore caught those and appreciated those nods of the names and the visual effects straight out of the comics and things like that. But yet they drew the casual viewer in as well. So it was just really well done.
Mm-hmm. And then, I mean, part of that opening sequence was immediately pulling on your heartstrings because they show Jonathan Kent having his heart attack and Clark having to lose him. And that, I mean, that was part of the opening montage. And you're thinking, holy cow, they're really getting us into the story fast. Because on Smallville, what did it take? 4 seasons before we lost Jonathan Kent?
Something like that.
Something like that. And I just remember that being one of the most difficult scenes and difficult episodes to watch in Smallville. I was crying, like tears streaming type of crying. It's so well done. And it just brought me back to that moment instantly. And this was just part of the opening montage. I'm like, oh my God, this show is hitting hard fast. It's like, oh, you're not paying attention? Whoosh, wake up, because here it comes. It just, jeez.
Yeah, they threw everything at you. I mean, just like, that's why I liked it. I thought it was very brilliant. It was a very good way to bring everybody in. And as someone who didn't really watch Smallville, I mean, I've seen a few episodes here and there, but I didn't watch the whole series. And I mean, I watched Lois and Clark when I was little, and I've seen movies. I've seen all the modern movies. I've seen some of the older ones, the classic ones as well. But it was good. It helps me just remember some of the stuff and just get that tone, set that stage for me.
Yeah, it was a great catch up. I mean, they wrapped it all up perfectly for someone who doesn't know the Superman story. With, like I said, I said 3 minutes because when I looked at the clock, it was about 3 minutes and 35 seconds for that entire opening sequence. Like, wow, they put a lot into that.
Yeah, it felt like more.
It was so good, so good. And I have to say, I mean, I love the history. They even showed the original Superman suit from the Action Comics, and it looked so comic book accurate and just so bright and colorful. And I love when the kid's like, wow, cool suit. And he was so proud. He's like, oh, thanks, my mom made it for me. Like, he was like a big kid himself still.
It was adorable.
Yeah.
It was just great. But when they cut to the scene where you finally see him in his new suit, and I know people have been talking about it from the promotional pictures, but man, his suit looks amazing. That is probably one of the best Superman suits yet, and it might be my favorite already.
It's a good one. I really liked it too.
Yeah, I did too.
Oh, it looks good. So we got some questions about Crisis here, Jeff.
Yeah, I like the fact that they gave us this opening montage to set the stage, but it does bring up a question. We can guess that this is how this universe happened, and this is post-crisis. So to everybody else, this is what happened in Clark's life. But it wasn't really addressed that he may have different memories because of Crisis. And it just makes me wonder, are we going to have that addressed later, or is it going to be just left out there, for us who know to wonder about, or not? I just I don't know.
You mean like all the other shows? No one's addressing Crisis. We're just going to let it lie.
Yeah. So.
Well, I have two thoughts. I have more to say on it when we get in later in the show, but I got a couple thoughts that came to me today on it. And I'm wondering if I remember reading an interview with the producers, all the CW producers, and because they've been trying to address the complaints about all the, because we've been complaining about this for a lot of the crossovers, that when the crossover ends, none of the shows deal with it. It's been getting less and less and less. And the producers said, well, you know what, think of the crossover events as a mini event outside of the normal storylines. Their crossovers are their own little individual happenings, and then that's it. They don't make them so integral to the rest of the shows, because that's just logistically, it's impossible for us to keep all the shows running along the same storyline. So just treat them as a separate little fun adventure to get all of our characters together, but they're not really part of the overall picture after that. So that's one point to think of.
Well, here's the thought, then don't rewrite the entire universe.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, and
Crisis is a big deal. They need to at
It
least
is.
talk about it.
Yeah.
But that leads into my second point. I'm glad you put it like that, because if you think about it, this show, Superman Lois, is 14 years later. The boys are 14 years old, and wasn't Lois pregnant
that's a
or
good
had
point.
just had the kids? So this is 14 years later. And
I didn't think of it that way.
And Oliver also he became the Monitor and whatever, and he wrote the whole universe, so he reset a lot of things. So whether this Clark Kent remembers anything or not, at the end of the Crisis event, things may have been different. But then Oliver goes and rewrites everything, and that's 14 years later. So this is just Clark's life now. And I think that 14-year time, we're a little bit in the future compared to the other shows. I don't think all the other shows are going to take a 14-year time jump. So I think that's why this one can stand apart a little bit, because we are 14 years old, 14 years later down the road.
I hadn't thought of that, to be honest. I think that's a really good point.
Yeah, I just don't know how they're going to deal with that, because it seems modern era, and didn't they get pregnant while they were off Earth, and they were on the asteroid where the Kryptonian population is, and nobody has powers, so that would make pregnancy possible. So I don't know. I don't know how they're going to deal with it, but we'll just have to ride it out and see.
Yeah, well, and that's the point I made, is that she was only pregnant in the Crisis event, so now we've had 14 years beyond that, and this is where we're at. And I will ask the question later, but I mean, what Earth are we in? We don't even know where we are right now, where this whole story is taking place, right? So, you know, we know about 6 Earths survived the Crisis, and we know all our various teams are spread out amongst the different Earths along the different TV shows. But I think they made a point of knowing or telling us that Supergirl is here on Earth 1, on Earth Prime. And
sure did.
This Superman, her cousin, was on the same Earth as her. So are we on Earth Prime? We don't know.
Yeah,
for sure yet. And that leads into what I want to get into later when you start talking about the ending of this episode. I've got some other ideas about that, so we'll see.
All right. Well, we'll save those for later then.
Yeah.
All right. So I want to roll into this next point. I've entitled it Losing Martha. I'm curious, was this expected? Because for me, it was unexpected. Like, I saw tons of chatter on Twitter because I was live tweeting. And so I saw tons of people saying this was in the trailer, but was it in one of the promos? Because I do not remember this being in the trailer, like, at all. This completely took me by surprise. And I'm kind of a little sad about this. Like, in one hand, I feel like it helps us seal like the old chapter of Superman's life, right? It kind of ties that up in a sad, neat little bow, unfortunately, and lets us move on to this new one. But at the same time, I was kind of hoping she'd still be around, like almost, I don't know, like a mentor. I don't know, just like it's something to help ground Superman just a little bit. Like maybe they'd be there taking care of her. I don't know. Just that was my thought. I was sad that they killed her within 5 minutes.
I'm totally with you, Harley. Like it shocked me too. I never saw any trailers showing that at all. I think that would kill the emotion of that scene if they really gave that away. Yeah. So I don't know what people are talking about, but man, that scene had me in tears because it was early in the episode too. And again, I'm already got tears and I'm crying more. I mean, it's like you said, Martha has been Clark's guiding light for so many years in his life. In every incarnation of his story, Martha Kent has been there to help guide him when he's struggling with things. And it's really hard to accept the loss of her for Clark as a character because we've known her for so long. I mean, even in the movies with Diane Lane playing the part, she's been there for him. And that's why it's so surprising, because now we see a Clark kind of empty-handed and on his own. Yes, he's got Lois, but I mean, his family that he grew up with, he's now the last one. And I mean, this is a big risk to take and a big change to the story, but it does kind of make sense. As much as that's hard to say, because this is 14 years later and she's already was an elderly woman. She's getting up there, so she may not have lasted that much longer anyway. So in the natural scheme of things, it does kind of make sense. And I regretfully agree with you, Harley. It does allow for a new chapter in Clark's story to begin.
Yeah, I just wonder, he's being a forerunner of a lot of things, of testing things out and trying things out for younger heroes who are can look up to him of how to balance family life and doing a super thing. But it would be really nice for him, like you said, to have somebody to lean on for it. It's not that she would have the advice on how to be super and a parent, but how to balance those things out and a touchstone. So I still think we'll probably get flashbacks. We'll get her sharing wisdom that he remembers, and that's a way to keep her active. But it would sure be nice to have somebody to be his touchstone to share advice with. And so that kind of heart is missing, although it does set this apart from every other Superman tale we've seen. Yeah. So it, once again, it's charting new territory and showing, hey, this is a different reality. So
yeah, I think that's the thing, is they're trying to set this up to focus on Clark, Lois, and the boys and their dynamic as a family, which it's sad to lose Martha, especially within like the first 5 minutes of the pilot, but I kind of get it.
Yeah. So. And I think you're right. We may see her in flashback, might not see a lot of it. We know that he's taking over the farm, so there might be flashbacks there where he's trying to remember how to do farm life and stuff.
That's true.
Because these actors are credited to be on the show as these characters. So even Jonathan Kent might show up in a flashback. You don't know.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
And we had a fun little cameo of Martha's doctor there. I looked and I was like, is that Dr. Crusher?
Yeah.
And then the next day I was able to look up on IMDb. Somebody had updated it and added it in as uncredited. Yes, that was Gates McFadden as Martha's doctor. So that was so cool.
It was so cool. She looked so familiar, but I wasn't quite sure because she never came forward. She was in the back of the house and kind of in shadows, so she never came forward. And I couldn't quite tell. I met her a while back, a few years ago at a Star Trek thing. And I still couldn't quite tell. And even her voice, I know her voice so well, and I'm listening. And I'm like, I don't know, but man, is she going to come back? Because that is the quickest cameo I have ever seen. I wonder if she'll be back for more. I mean, she's Martha's doctor, but as we saw when the boys were hurt, it was different doctors that were coming around. So will we see her again?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. We could. That would be that's kind of fun. That's a fun little tie-in there.
Yeah, it is.
Or I don't know exactly what to call that. Tie-in, Easter egg, whatever. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
All right. So I touched on this a little bit already, but this also becomes the catalyst for them to move to Smallville. So like at the beginning, they set them up in Metropolis, and I'm just like, when are they going to move back to Smallville? I mean, they sort of started it because like Clark loses his job and then his mom dies. So I was like, okay, so this is clearly going to be like the whole thing that by the end of the pilot, we're going to be moving back to Smallville. So again, sad for her loss. But this is random, and this is probably just me being dense, but I didn't quite immediately get that like she died in that bedroom scene. Like I thought, I don't know. I thought maybe she was like in like a coma or something, but then they go straight to her funeral. So I was like, oh, wow. Okay. That was fast.
Yeah. I think she was already gone before Clark got there. I think that's what the doctor was calling him about, is that she's gone.
Or she's getting ready to pass. So,
yeah. And he didn't even, because he didn't get a chance to say goodbye. When he gets into her bedroom, she's already gone. And that's why he's so sad. And because if you notice, he couldn't even look at her for a moment.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I was trying. Yeah. On the second watch, I kind of picked up on it, but first time I was like, what's going on?
Yeah. But I like when he was thinking back, like he hears her say, because he said when I was flying over there, he hears her say, it's time to come home. And I like how he figures out that she's telling him what's best for his family. Like I said, she's always going to be his guiding light in his life. And this was her last moment. She knew what is going on with his family and his kids and the troubles they're having. And she's like, and I think he picked up on that. He understood it. He figured it out when he looked at that stitching on the wall, and it said it goes by too fast or something. I think he pieced it all together. Like, this is what my mom meant for us to do. Yes.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. We all need a mom character like that in our lives, eh? That just knows.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a point I want to bring up about talking about Lois's dad, General Lane. Do we know his first name?
Sam.
It's Sam Lane? Okay. It doesn't seem like he gets along with Lois. And I was trying to remember back because I know he visited Smallville with Erica Durance's version. And I recall them not getting along either. They've always had a rocky relationship, haven't they?
Yeah, it's been there off and on, and it's kind of changed by whatever media we're looking at. And so I think they're setting up a contrast of this is what Martha was like as a parent and how it grounded Clark and prepped him to be who he needed to be. And they're bringing up General Lane and the relationship that he has with Lois and how that maybe pushes her to be who she is because of how success driven that, she is, because she has to maybe win his favor. So I think they're playing on that two sides of the coin there of mother and father relationships and how it focuses in on Lois and Clark and how they are being parents. So I think that's what they're trying to play with a little bit there.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, and yeah, that seems like it's part of the history. So I'm unsure of him yet. He's a typical military man, and they're all about get the job done first. Everything else comes second. So we'll see how that affects the family life here as well. Now, I got another question. He knows who Clark is here. He knows he's Superman, and I can't remember. Has he always known that in other iterations of the story, or is it because we're 14 years into the life of him being married to his daughter that he now knows? Is this a new version of him knowing?
I'm not sure. I really am not. I like that aspect. And to me, the way it sounded and the way it felt is that Clark was up front when he asked Lois to marry him. It feels like he would have told General Lane about who he is. That just seems like his personality based on what we see. So I'm just not sure to other versions of how known. So I don't know.
Okay, cool. Maybe our listeners can chime in on that. I'm just unsure. I feel like this is a new, up like you were talking about, up until the marriage point, I don't think he maybe knew that Clark was Superman. So we'll have to see about that. Now, the other little cool bit I liked here is that he has this little transceiver to call Superman to emergencies when he needs him. And so does Lois, which we see later on in the episode. I thought that's really cool. Just a little, beep, beep, and it's only Superman that can hear it. And, here he comes. That was cool.
Yeah, they've did from the watches used by Jimmy Olsen and others to these transceivers, gone a little more high tech.
Yeah.
So.
Very cool. I agree.
Pretty cool. Well, let's get into Lois and Clark a little bit here. Just a few points that I had written down about the two of them. And I want to talk about Lois when after the opening montage and we see Superman save the nuclear power plant and has that big cool sequence with the big chunk of ice from the lake. It's so funny. He comes home and he's just saved a lot of people and saved a town, and he walks in the door and she just doesn't care. She's like, I don't care that you stopped the nuclear power plant meltdown. You're late. You missed therapy. Go talk to your boys. You have to apologize. I got to make dinner and finish my conversation. Like, it just doesn't matter to her. And I had a good chuckle at that, because these little moments like that, it sinks in that life for Superman isn't actually that easy. He's got a lot to deal with.
He does have a lot to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
I do sort of feel for him. It's hard enough to juggle family life and a job, and then add us being Superman on top of that. I can't imagine what that's like.
Because after she kind of gives him that little lecture, you just see him just drop his head like, oh.
I know.
Nobody cares about what I got to do. It's just funny, but it really attaches us to the emotion of what life must be like. And that's what I'm going to keep saying this a lot in the show, is that how grounded and real this felt. Because now we're seeing the life of Clark Kent and not just comic book superheroics. And it just, there's so many moments like this that really sunk it in. And there's just great stuff. And I want to talk about the actors, Elizabeth Tulloch and Tyler Hoechlin. Their performances were absolutely excellent. I wasn't sure about her during the Crisis because we didn't get a lot of her, and I wasn't sure about her as Lois because we've had some really strong Lois actresses before. I mean, Erica Durance is my favorite, but by the end of this episode, Elizabeth won me over, and she really has a nice natural feel to her where, yeah, she's a real tough reporter, world renowned, but she brings that toughness home too, and she kind of runs the family. Like, you got that sense here too. She runs the household, and I love that for her. She played that part really, really well. And then Tyler, he's just fantastic, because quite often I complain about the guys that play Batman. They're either really good as Bruce Wayne and they suck as Batman, or they're great action Batman, but they suck as Bruce Wayne. Tyler here, both sides of the role, suits it all the way around. It's just a great job for these two.
Yeah, I think the biggest part of this is that we are in new territory. These are mature people. We're not seeing origin stories. We're not seeing the beginning stuff. We're seeing that has been around for a while. They've developed their roles as husband and wife, but also a Superman and Lois dynamic of, how they're going to do things. And so I think choosing these two may have made people scratch their heads in the beginning, not knowing that this is where they're going to be. And I think they're playing where these two characters are well, and they're well chosen for the stage of Clark and Lois that we're seeing. So I'm thinking that people are going to be won over once they get that this isn't just a superhero show, but it is about family. And so I'm looking forward to seeing that develop and them grow into that role as well.
Yeah, well, you actually make me laugh when you're saying that. It's like a lot of the shows tend to cast on looks first. We need someone super buff and super cover model to fill this role. And you could say that about Erica Durance and her Lois. She was obviously brought in for her looks to play the part, but she won me over because she played such a great Lois. But these actors, everybody in this show, they're maybe not, I mean, they're all good looking people, but they're maybe not who you would see on the cover of a fashion magazine or a supermodel magazine to play the parts. And that's what I think also helps in the realness of the show. These are just real people. They're normal people, and they don't have to look like a Pamela Anderson or whatever to be able to play a superhero role. You know what I mean? And I think that was part of the genius in the way they casted, because everybody in this show has so far, after this one episode, been a great casting job so far. I mean, all of the parts.
Yeah, no, I'm enjoying the casting. I think the actors are doing a great job. And just one thing that, while we're talking about Lois and Clark, that I'll add that I absolutely loved about Lois is just her passion and the way that Elizabeth sort of brings that forward. I'm particularly thinking of the scene at the Daily Planet where she's like going off on this rant about no one does real journalism anymore. It's just digital clickbait. And I was like, yes, oh my gosh, I love you. You were thinking exactly what, or saying exactly what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Just made me laugh. And I love that Lois is so passionate.
Yeah, they brought that up last season in Supergirl as well, talking about this new CEO taking over and turning it into a clickbait tabloid. And I'm like, they're on the same page.
Yes, welcome to the real world.
Yeah, it was nice and subtle. It was great. And I'm always talking about physicality and the action segments and stuff. And I just wanted to point out, there's that scene when the kids got in trouble in the barn while the pipes fell on them, and you see Clark running to the barn. And Tyler is a great runner. He had perfect symmetry, perfect form when he ran, and he wasn't all wild and crazy. It's just like a perfect robotic. And I just want to point out, good running style.
Yeah. No, I can't remember if he worked on any shows that ever filmed in Atlanta, but when I was playing soccer here, there were a few actors that would come and play on my soccer team. Can't remember if he was one of them or not,
Oh, cool.
but that if he was a soccer player, that would explain his good running form. So
Yeah.
that's where I was going with that.
You're just watching his form, admit it, Harley.
Oh yeah.
The last point I have about Clark in here and the way what this show is doing is the way they used his super hearing. I thought it was cool that they could show him turning it on, like he was just able to activate it when he wanted to. He was able to shut everything out, but when he needed to listen, he would listen. And they did that quite a few times in this episode. You know, using his hearing when he wants and tuning it in to whatever direction he needs to listen to. I thought that was really, really cool how they did, because super hearing, that's hard to portray in live action. I mean, the heat vision, simple. Yeah. You know, the freezing breath, simple. But super hearing, how do you visualize that? So they did a good job with it. And I was wondering if that had to do, because he makes the point about his parents helping him learn to control his abilities. Okay, that's kind of cool. I wonder how two normal human beings can help a superpowered alien control his abilities. But it's the Kents, of course. I mean, they're great parents.
I like the bit about super smell. It made me laugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on to the kids.
I was going to say, speaking of smelly teenagers, let's talk about the Kent brothers here for a minute, because there was a lot that they set up here. So there's a lot to dig into. So here's where we're going to start. I'm going to start with Clark's relationship with the brothers, because it's incredibly complicated. Like, for twins, they are so different. I mean, they set them up to be night and day different, and you really get a sense of that throughout this whole episode. I mean, he clearly relates to Jonathan and not at all to Jordan. It seems like Jonathan was more easygoing. He's athletic, maybe a bit more like Clark was when he was a kid. But then, you know, at the same time, since he is an alien, he also does relate to Jordan in some ways that you see it throughout the rest of the episode, but he just has such a hard time connecting with him. Like, they just cannot make it work for a while. And so I liked seeing that progression throughout the episode. It was nice to see Jordan soften a little bit. It was nice to see Clark able to connect with him and sort of get through a little bit by the end. So
yeah, and this is part of where the realism really kicks in too, because how many families struggle with this type of hardship? You know, one kid is always, you always hear people talk about, oh, he's the favorite son, or you know, the middle kid is the troubled child because she's in between the older and the younger, and it keeps slapping you with how real this show is going to be, and this was a perfect example of it. Yeah. Now the two actors, Alex Garfin, who plays Jordan, and Jordan Elsas, who plays Jonathan. It's kind of funny. Jordan is playing a Jonathan, and Alex is playing a Jordan.
That is funny.
I thought they were really, really believable. They actually seemed like brothers. I wasn't put off by them at all. Well done, good job. They played like brothers. It looked like they'd grown up together. I loved the protection. And I think I bring that up later, but I love how Jonathan was very protective of Jordan.
Yeah.
And, you know, they felt real, and I really appreciate that. What a great start. 'Cause sometimes, you know, younger actors, it's tough to get a good dramatic edge from them or a good feel. And these guys just really hit it off. And I did have to laugh, though. There's a few scenes where Jordan looked a lot like Frodo Baggins to me. Did he? With his hair and he looked like, was not Edward Furlong.
Elijah Wood.
Elijah Wood. Yeah. I don't know. It's funny, but yeah. What'd you guys think of those two?
Well, I liked it. I think they did a very good job in casting. I wonder if Jordan is a little like his mom when she was his age. Maybe that would kind of explain, like, Clark can identify with Jordan a little bit better, and maybe Lois Jonathan, but maybe it's that way, that it's a little bit that way. But I think they did a really good job in casting. I mean, I don't know how many sets of actors and how many read-throughs that they had, but they did a great job when they chose the two, and the dynamic with each other, just the care for each other, the looking out for each other. And it was heartfelt. Appreciate the depth there and not the stereotypical nature of maybe teens that we might have seen. There was some of that, but I think they did a good job. So
yeah, well said.
Yeah, no, I agree with all of that. So I won't continue on. So I'm going to move on to their fight at the party. Now, I thought this was very cool because their fight, of course, is cut in with Superman's fight with Captain Luthor.
yeah.
And
The Stranger. We don't know he's Luthor until the very end. He was just known as the
well,
Stranger.
I know, but now we know who he is because we've seen it. Anyways, spoilers, in case we didn't say that at the beginning. I think that should be obvious for a TV review podcast. Anyways, I thought it was a neat touch to kind of cut between the two. I enjoyed that a lot. And look, I do have one thing to say about this fight because I always get really about the Superman fight because I always get very picky about stuff that happens in space. So for me, I'm just going to choose to believe that this happened in the upper atmosphere where there is still atmosphere. Because let me tell you, lasers don't work in space. There is no wind in space, and you cannot talk in space. You cannot blow breath in space. It is a vacuum. Anyways,
I was going to ask
drama always wins.
I was going to ask you what you meant because I just look at I guess I'm looking at the cartoons and all that stuff. Superman's always been able to do those things in space, and he's done things many times like stopping meteors and whatever things like that. But I thought at close range, because haven't we seen in a lot of space movies? Like if something's on fire and they need to open the port doors, that the fire gets sucked out and then just disappears right away because of the vacuum. So I thought within close range, you might have a second or two of stuff happening before the vacuum of space affects it. I don't think it's instantaneous, is it?
If you're actually in the vacuum. So let's just, for the sake of argument, assume
It's science stuff.
that aliens survive in the vacuum of space because they're aliens and it's comic books and they can. Regardless, there's nothing in space. The reason sound waves travel, the reason light travels and that we can see things and hear things is because the air travels on the air. Vacuum, there's nothing in a vacuum. There's no way for sound to travel like whatsoever. So all of those science movies, let me tell you, that is not real science. This is why I get so picky about sci-fi stuff, so we're not going to let me continue going off on this tangent. But anyways, I always get picky about that stuff. So it happened in the upper atmosphere as far as I'm concerned.
There you go. Okay, I mean, fair enough. That's why I wanted to dig into it a little
fight.
bit. I mean, that's why I asked, because he uses his heat vision and his cold breath, and I thought at that close range he should be able to use it for that moment. I mean,
there's no air there for his breath to make cold. There's lasers can't travel if they don't have air to travel through. Cool. Science, physics. Anyway.
Cool. Well, still, it was good. I mean, I love what I will agree with you, Wish, is the cutting between the two fight sequences. That to me was amazing. The music and the nature of the fights paralleling each other. It just, God, it was when a show can do this, and we've seen it on Arrow before. It's really, really neat. It's just, so well done.
The scene of Superman crashing through the wall.
Oh,
and just the debris, and that is just an amazing display of special effects of making it look real and how things are going through. It was just so well done. And again, the timing, the back and the forth of the editing, they just did such a good job of posing the desperateness of the situation in the quarry and Superman being faced with a enemy that nothing he's doing seems to have any effect. I mean, they just did a wonderful job with this fight sequence. So
they did. That crashing through the wall, it's like they set up a slow motion camera to just capture what was really happening. It's just cool.
I know. Yeah. A lot of the effects that they did with Superman in particular were very impressive. I mean, I'm sitting there, granted, I have no film background, going, how are they doing that? Because I swear to you, it looked like Tyler picked up that truck. Like, I swear.
Yeah. Maybe they had a truck attached to a crane and they just lifted it for him while he's underneath it. And there you go. It's actually there. He's actually doing it. But,
Yeah.
you know, I
This
guess,
is very cool.
Yeah, it's very, very cool.
Very cool.
But back to the brothers.
Right. I have a question for you guys. I'll ask the question and then I'll tell you what I think. Do you think both the brothers have powers? I think they do. I think they clearly set John up as the red herring for this episode, but I still think it's likely they could both have some powers. So I'm really interested to see how this part plays out.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a difference in the power set.
Yes.
And so I think this play off of things is going to be interesting to see. Of one may not have all of the abilities that Clark has and the other one has those, or it could be a totally different power set, because in the history of Superman lore, there have been times when he has had totally different power than what we traditionally think. So I've thought that both of them are going to have powers. They're just going to be manifested in different ways.
I was thinking about this all day. I've got so many different ideas. I could agree with you guys and I could add more in it. But first I thought it was a really good misdirect with the physical prowess of Jonathan, you know, the athlete and everything. It made sense, but then it was too obvious. And once the fight started at the party, I just got this inkling. I was like, wait a second, it's going to be Jordan that wakes up here. This is a stressful moment. It's going to be him that wakes up. And I'm not sure if both of them will have powers. I'm wondering if, because you've got two different species mating to start a family here, and one of them could have gotten more of Clark's blood, and one of them could have gotten more of Lois's blood. And I think that would make for some interesting stories to tell, because the athletic jock has to watch his nerdy, reclusive brother get to be the stronger one now, because he's used to being the protector and the strong one, right? So imagine what that could do with when he has to struggle. It seemed like he was okay with it at the end of this episode, because he's a very supportive brother, which I was happy to see, but we'll have to see what happens. And now the other thing that I was thinking of is, if they both end up getting powers, what if one of them, and they could be very similar powers, but one of them, I can't remember if I have this later in the notes, but I'm going to talk about it now.
You're fine.
What if Jordan ends up not being able to control himself because he deals with the anxiety, because he deals with all these issues? And you could see there's a twinge of something when they were talking with him in the kitchen, and his brother kind of mocked him. Oh, you're like an unstoppable car with laser beams for headlights. And he's like, yeah, thanks. I have a feeling, what if Jordan is going to be manipulated somewhere down the line by a bad guy, whether it's this new Captain Luthor or someone else? But what if he ends up getting, or Morgan Edge, gets manipulated, ends up swinging to the bad side, and we have a brother versus brother storyline down the line?
Yeah, their powers open up a ton of different possibilities. The whole aspect of how invulnerable are they? Do they still have the weakness to kryptonite, or is it not as bad? You know, it's just going to be so cool to see it play out, because there are some unknowns. Now, there is, you know, in the comics, there is a Superboy that is a son, but it's going to be so cool to see, and it just opens a ton of doors. So it's going to be really cool to look at going forward.
Yeah. So mark that right now. That is my long-term theory for the show. If they both get powers, one of them's going to be manipulated to the dark side, and
Jordan turns bad.
Yeah,
I can totally see it.
Yeah, and we'll have to see. So you heard it here first.
So, talking about Jordan, I'm wondering, he is dealing with social anxiety, and bravo for the production staff of having real life mental issues and struggles that people face every day being brought in. I love. My question is, and I'm wondering, is part of that adding, it's not the cause, but maybe a factor in his anxiety, is he is dealing with the start of getting his powers. Maybe he's hearing things that maybe he doesn't know. People are speaking really quietly, so his super hearing and other things are kicking in low levels to the point where he doesn't consciously realize it, but they're adding to what he's dealing with. So, he's overhearing maybe people talking about him from a distance away, and he internalizes that. So that's my question is, are the powers adding to that social anxiety, or are they going to be, were they not there before? I just don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point, because he's been struggling and we don't know why, or he doesn't know why he's been struggling. And because he even says in it, he says, I've been feeling all this stuff and now I know why. And he totally blames Clark for it. So yeah, it's there's a lot involved there. And I think some of it is that some kids struggle with their dad being away all the time, or one of the parents being away all the time. They struggle with that. They don't know how to deal with it, connection issues or whatever. He's feeling like secrets are being kept from him. And kids struggle with that kind of stuff when they know their parents aren't telling them everything, and they struggle with that. I mean, there's puberty here. They're 14 years old, so puberty's kicking in. And like you said, his powers are maturing. There's so much this age is a really, really tough age to have a lot of this stuff happening. I mean, now they're moving from the city that they know to a farm. So that, because Clark's like, come on, I'm going to show you how to hook up a tractor to the hoe there. And they're like, what? So it's crazy what he's going to have to deal with. And he just might be one of those kids that can't handle all of that. And that's why he's struggling. But what I did like is that he is the one that's turning out to be the smart one. Like Jonathan is really looking more like just the party jock type of kid who loves his brother, protects him, but he's still just the jock. Where Jordan is, because he's the one that was figuring everything out and making the connections. And like, Dad's not telling us something. And why should we always not go in the barn? Why? And he's figuring it out. So yeah, watch out. I mean, if he ends up being the bad guy, he's going to be smart. He's going to be like a Brainiac type of character.
Yeah. I just hope that they continue to deal with these things throughout the series where it's not a magic bullet. Okay, he's got powers now. Everything's A-okay. Kind of throwing it to the Marvel side of things. I love the fact that they have dealt well with people dealing with powers and real world issues and growing up in a way that we really, other than Young Justice, we haven't seen on the DC side. So I'm really hoping that they don't just say, oh, he's perfectly fine now that he knows he has powers, and it wipes away that anxiety. So I'm hoping that for kids looking up to say, hey, this kid is dealing with issues that I deal with and he's getting through it. I can get through it too. So I'm hoping that they keep that up.
You're kind of reminding me of how Felicity was put in a wheelchair and then they never ever went back to that. She just immediately got, we made a chip to make me walk again. And that was it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I agree. I mean, I agree with all those points. Yeah, I hope that it's not something that they brush under the rug. I think it's fascinating to think about his powers possibly contributing to it. But I do think that Lois was correct when she said that his mental health didn't have anything to do with his powers per se. I think, it's interesting to think about them making it worse or even, or possibly bringing it about in the first place. But now that he has those issues, I hope they've established that. So I hope they don't just brush it under the rug.
Yeah. Well, and he's got a confidant in Sarah now because she also took pills to help herself. So he's got a confidant there. So that looks like a storyline for him going forward, is he's going to have a friend in her. So that might be something we see for a little while. But the only thing that I'm curious about that might go against everything you're saying is he did, in that conversation in the kitchen, he did suddenly seem more confident when he was telling them the story of what happened.
Yeah.
How I suddenly felt stronger and I felt in control. And so I thought, maybe they are shaking his anxiety right there in that moment.
I think, just looking at things, I think in Metropolis, it was one way where one was confident on top of things socially there. I think it's going to be a switch moving to Smallville where Jordan is going to kind of shine more and Jonathan's going to be that all-star football player, but he's going to be a little out of his element. So I see that maybe they're playing with those things as well. So we'll see.
I think Jonathan's going to be the quarterback for the Smallville Crows.
Yeah.
Like Dad.
There we go.
Yeah. So I got a question for you guys now, and I think this is a big topic we can talk about for a couple minutes here. I want to discuss our opinions on this because it was a major story point in the episode. Should Clark have told them about who he was sooner, or should he kept it a secret? Why do you guys think that, and when would have been the right time to tell the boys?
Oh man, there is no good time. No matter what you do, they're gonna hate you for it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to think. Like, I mean, like both as a parent and then like as a child. Like, I mean, you see both sides of it. I mean, obviously you keep things from your children that you think will hurt them to protect them. But as they get older, they don't view that as protecting them. They view that as being lied to, and it's a betrayal, and you feel betrayed. You feel like your trust is broken. And that's a hard thing, especially for teenagers to accept and get over. So I think that if they were going to tell them, I think they were right not to tell them when they were very little, because kids say everything. They say the first thing that pops into their heads. They have no filters whatsoever. Mm-hmm. I think they needed to be, I mean, at the least like 12 or 13, but that is an awful big burden to put on a child. So I understand like where they're coming from and why they're upset, but I kind of also see like Clark and Lois's side of it, of wanting to keep it from them, not only to protect them, but to protect themselves. I mean, they knew what they were looking for. They were keeping an eye for things, for possible powers manifesting. And unfortunately, they pegged it wrong. It's so wrong that they had even tested Jonathan. They didn't even think to test Jordan. So you would think if they tested one, they would test them both. I mean, they're twins, but I don't know. Anyways, I don't know. I guess what I'm trying to say is I think they did the right thing. I mean, they're 14. It's such a hard age.
Yeah, it's brand new because we've dealt with in our superhero shows of who are you going to reveal your identity to?
Yeah.
And
Barry.
Everybody, according to some of them, but yeah.
Yeah. But with the exception of in Arrow, we haven't really had to deal with somebody young knowing. And I think this is one of those things, like Jess said, it's never going to be the right time. Maybe a little bit before, when they were, starting junior high, maybe before they got to high school here. I just don't know. But like I said, I don't know that there's an easy time to bring that forward. So I just don't know.
See, the reason I wanted to ask you guys, because I swung back and forth. I was like, well, maybe you should have done it younger, because I related it to when you tell a kid that they're adopted. Isn't this a similar kind of idea? When is the right time to tell a kid that, hey, I'm not your real parents, but you are my kid. So do they tell them younger so that they know growing up and don't get to that point, that teenage point where they think you're betraying them? Or do you wait longer until maybe their brain has matured enough that they can handle the information? Like wait till they're 18 and then fill them in on the really deep, important stuff. And then their brain is able to process and handle it. So I was like, God, which way would I go? And then I thought ultimately, maybe this time was the right time. It was the only time that it needed to happen. It came out naturally. Yes, they're upset for a little bit. But even by the end of the episode, they both seemed okay because they're both like, man, we just found out our dad's Superman. Like we got 100 questions. Like they were so immediately, they're good kids. They've raised them right because it didn't take long to get that. And Clark had the sit down talk with Jordan on the stairs and, he won him over and they had the little moments. So I think ultimately it comes back to it came out naturally. And it needed to happen when it needed to happen. And there really is no correct time, like you guys said. So, yeah.
Yeah, there's not. And I think the important thing was when they confronted him, he didn't lie anymore. He didn't say, oh no, blah, blah, blah. That's not right. That's just a crystal. You made it up, that sort of stuff. He was like, you're right. I've been lying to you. Like he was very upfront about it and he owned it and he explained to them why. So I think that was important too.
Yeah. Cool.
All right. Let's move on to the Cushing family real quick. We can just touch on them a little bit. I particularly wanted to touch on Kyle, especially because in this episode, yes, he was so confrontational. Like I feel for him. He's bitter. His town is dying. I mean, it's a sad thing that we're seeing all across our country. Like small town America is completely disappearing, and it's sad, but wow. Yeah, he was very confrontational. So I was wondering if they were almost setting him up to be like getting in with like Morgan Edge and possibly being not like a villain himself, but like involved with a villain, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, he came off as a jerk big time. And I'm jealous too, obviously, with their younger daughter talking about the Facebook posting or whatever.
Oh my gosh. It was so awkward.
It's so funny. But I'm wondering if he's also another red herring here as to becoming a villain because he came off as such a harsh jerk. But when you look at the end of the episode after the fight in the quarry there, there's just something about the way he says to Clark, God, you guys are the luckiest family I know. And he's walking away and Clark's like, well, actually, wait a second, Kyle, thank you. And he just like, yeah, no problem. I got a feeling from him there that he might end up being a hero after all because he is a fireman and he's in that heroic state himself or position himself. So I have a feeling he might, whatever it is that's going on with him, if he's jealous or, he's an angry person, I don't know. I think it seems like him and Lon are having some marital problems that we haven't seen yet. And he's just expressing that outwardly to everybody else. And he's obviously having family issues because him and Sarah do not get along. They were picking at each other big time in front of everybody. So yeah, I think he's struggling and he might not be such a bad guy is where I think we'll end up seeing him go. Yeah,
I think they purposely chose his name as a Kyle. And maybe I'm hoping it is to throw us off. I really appreciate, we've talked about how the show is grounded. I appreciate that they're bringing in different points of views and political points rather than, as in some shows, that they're just pressing the producer's agenda. What I hope is they don't stereotype Kyle into somebody who's easily duped and angry, and because that's what's led to a lot of division in the U.S. I'm hoping that they show that depth and that character, and so I'm hoping they kind of put that name in there and that first interpretation to kind of throw things one way, and then they're going to turn things on their ear. So we'll see.
Yeah. I think I have faith in these writers. The way they put this whole first episode together, I think I have faith in them setting these characters on the right path so that it's not same old. We've seen that before type of stuff.
Yeah. And they try to dispel that a little bit because when he was kind of confronting Lois a little bit, he's like, oh, you think because I'm from a small town, I'm, easily duped or I'm not very smart or, whatever words that he used. And so I like that he threw that out first. And Lois, of course, was like, no, that's not what I meant. But, like he sees how other people view small towns. And so I like that they kind of went that angle with it because like you said, Jeff, it kind of makes him seem the opposite. It makes him seem smarter, more savvy. Like he understands what's going on. So I like that.
He just doesn't use big city words. He uses farm words.
Right. Yeah. Because he's born and raised in a farming country.
Yeah. Now let's talk about Lana for a second. Because if I have to admit it, this is maybe the one character I was a little bit unsure of or maybe uncomfortable with is more the feeling she didn't feel like the Lana that we've known from all the previous incarnations of her. There's something about her. Like she seemed like she didn't belong in Smallville. She seemed too big city, too hoity-toity. and all about the hair and the makeup and the fashion design and stuff. She felt like a big city girl stuck in Smallville to me, and I was just uncomfortable with her. But we'll have to see with more time where she goes. I was curious what you guys felt of her before I move on to my next point.
I kind of thought she was a bit more genuine. I mean, you're not sure what to expect when you first see them at the funeral, because it does sort of feel like, hi, Clark, oh my gosh, like I've missed you. Like she's still holding like an old flame, even though she was there with her husband. But as the episode goes on, I kind of felt like she just genuinely loved his family, loved his mother, and genuinely wanted to help them, and just wasn't really aware of some of the other stuff going on.
Yeah, I think that they are the big fish in that little pond.
Yes.
And because of him being the fire chief, because of her being the loan officer in the bank, they are the top tier in the town, and they're kind of used to that. And then you have these two people from Metropolis coming in, and it's taking things down. So we'll have to see how that plays out and where things go. So I'm just not sure of where she is yet. So I don't know.
I like that. They're the top dogs, and now big city folk have come in and are challenging that. So yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it. The one thing I liked about her, she had that line. She was just talking to them in the bank. She's like, lots of strange things happened around here back then.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what a nod to Smallville, eh? Like, that was awesome.
Made me laugh out loud. There's a lot of good one-liners in there.
Yeah. No, fun stuff. So yeah, hopefully I don't hate her or anything. I just felt a little unsure of her, I guess. So we'll see.
Gotcha. Well, let's roll into our villains. I want to start with Morgan Edge first. I like that they're going to set this up for both Clark and Lois to have a villain. And I think you're right saying that kind of Morgan Edge is going to end up being maybe both of their villains, and that he's definitely got a bigger role to play. I'm curious to see how he plays in. But like the first thing I'm wondering is, why did he buy the Daily Planet? Like that's over in Metropolis. Like how is that tied into all this stuff with Smallville? That felt weird to me. Any insight?
I mean, I like what you said. He's going to be a good counter to Lois, losing her newspaper to a digital platform, like you already said.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, if a villain can control the press, he can get them to tell the public what he wants.
That's a good point.
And that would be why he bought them, I would think, because now he controls the press, he controls the major newspaper, and how that's connected to Smallville. I just think there's something going on in Smallville. Yeah. Actually, that'll be your next point. I'll save it for there. But yeah, I just think right now he wants to own the press so he can control what news is being said.
They're setting it up so that Lois can't escape him. At work, she's under his minions. At home, he's looking behind the scenes. So wherever she runs to, he's there. And I think he's going to be that long-term villain. I said this a little later, but he's going to be that long-term villain a la Lex in Smallville that's always there, coming in and out. And we may have other villains that come and go, but he's going to be that steady one that's kind of there behind the scene and not giving them anywhere to run to.
Okay.
Now, do either of you know his history in the comic books? Like, I know the name very well, but I don't know him like I know Lex Luthor's story.
I'm not as familiar. I mean, he was on Supergirl, different actor, but this is going to be a different some things. So he does have a history, but he is not in the same tier as Lex, but they can use that to the advantage here of making things new and writing new stories for him that maybe he didn't have. So, but I'm not as familiar with him from the comics. So.
We'll have to do a bit of research on him for our next episode, so we have a bit of background on him. I think that would be good for us.
Yeah.
But
okay.
Yeah, so your next point here, Harley, that's what I was about to dive into. So can continue with the
You were.
Smallville talk. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I want to learn more about him. So, I mean, starting with some comic research, not a bad idea. Maybe we could just get at least a little bit of that background. I want to know about his plans for Smallville. I mean, nothing is going to come good is going to come out of this. Nothing. He's clearly acquiring land shadily for some reason, probably to build something big in the middle of nowhere where no one knows what he is up to. Like, he's definitely not up to anything good. Very nefarious, I think. So I want to see where it goes.
Yeah, that's exactly my thoughts too. And I picked up on something, and I don't know if this means anything, but when Sarah was telling the boys about Smallville, she says, people around here get a sadness, and it's like catching the flu. And I just thought, that's kind of an odd thing to say. That people are here get a sadness. It's not like, oh, people are just sad because the town is dying. It's just like the way she words it. And I'm wondering if there's something happening in Smallville. Like, did Clark's meteor bring something to the area that's affecting it? A la Smallville in the meteor storm, but more on a, maybe there's a radiation to the thing, or there's some type of something that they're being exposed to that's making people sad. They're losing their interest or their desire to progress or help Smallville, stay afloat. I don't know. And I don't know if it means anything. Does this link to why Morgan Edge is interested in the land there? Is that why he's buying all the properties in the farm? Because he's obviously a rich guy that has a lot of power. Maybe he already knows something's happening there. And that's why he's buying up the land so that he could do whatever nefarious things he wants to do behind the scenes.
Yeah, I think it adds into that people are just leaving Smallville. I think the people who, it seems the way Sarah put it, that she was fine up until a certain point, maybe when puberty hits and those hormones start hitting, that's when there's a greater vulnerability to whatever's going on. And so people get to a point of they maybe can't identify what's going on. So they talk about Clark's friends that have all left. They get to the point where they just can't deal with it, so they move somewhere else. So I do think it's somewhat tied to what he's doing, and he's going to use to maybe get control of people. I just don't know, but it makes it sound like there's a vulnerability once you get to a certain age. And so we'll see how that plays out, but I'm thinking it's all related somehow.
Well, it has to be. I think they're pulling on a lot of ideas the way Smallville ran things. We're going to have a grounded, real life type villain in Morgan Edge, the way we had Lex Luthor in Smallville. He's just a regular guy with a lot of money and power. And then you're going to have the superpowered villain in Captain Luthor, just like in Smallville, Clark had to deal with all the meteor affected people. So we're going to have the full, gamut of types of villains, and which I think is great because it's going to keep this show grounded when you've got just a money, power hungry guy trying to take over for whatever his reasons are, versus when Superman has to suit up, or I should say when Clark has to suit up and go fight, Captain Luthor and whoever else might show up. So it's good.
Good points. Good points. Well, it's time. I think we have finally reached the point in the episode where we're going to talk about Captain Luthor. We have been alluding to him all episode long.
Wow.
All right. First off, so I think I caught this on the rewatch, but like the reason he's attacking these nuclear facilities, it was really just to observe Superman, because that seems really extreme to me. And he's also extremely strong. I was not expecting him to dominate that fight between the two of them. That was very surprising to me, that he got the upper hand and got the better of Superman that fast. Like, I was like, what is going on?
Well, that's the suit. I mean, Lex Luthor has been working forever on a suit that will allow him to go toe to toe with Superman. And this, we saw this come to life for probably I think the first time ever in live action, because this has been in the cartoons, it's been in the comic books, where he designs a suit that allows him to stand toe to toe with them. And it was just really cool. And that's what when I first saw him, I was like, oh my God, that's got to be Luthor, because he's the only one that has ever done that, designed a suit to be able to do that. And and he's won a lot of fights. There's been a lot of fights in that he's beaten Superman down with it, and Superman has to figure out a way. How can I get around this? Like, he's countering me in every way. How can I get around it? And he's done it. Now, the suit's never looked like that before. It's been a lot more brighter green because it's been glowing with kryptonite power and whatever else that helps him. So I was like, maybe it's not him, but it ends up being him. And like you said, the nuclear power plant stuff is he's testing the Superman, and he says that a lot in the discussion that when he's revealing to Clark, it's like, I'm testing you. I need to see how strong you are and whatever. And I mean, how else are you going to test Superman? Then you can't just go tell somebody to rob a bank. That's no challenge for Superman.
Good point. That's a good point. Okay.
Yeah.
That helps. So I have a lot of questions about this Luthor character. Like, a lot of questions. First of all, I wasn't even sure that I heard him right. So, like, I was glad that everyone kind of jumped all over it. I was like, okay, he did say Captain Luthor. Like, I did not make that up.
Yeah, the ship that almost sounded like Gideon.
Yeah, for a second, I was like, oh, that's interesting. Anyways, we're not going to go off on that tangent. Now, I'm thinking this is a different Luthor, not like the Lex Luthor. Because I honestly was afraid we'd see like yet another incarnation of, like the original Lex Luthor. I mean, although I guess we could see him at some point, because do we know if he's dead? Like, I have lots of questions. I'm just going to throw them all out there. Like, is Lex actually dead? Are we going to see him? And how does Lex from Supergirl tie into all of this? I mean, it goes back to Jeff's point about Crisis. Like, does this impact that at all?
You want me to go first, Jeff, or do you got something on that?
Yeah, I believe, I'll bring this point up. I believe that this is not Lex, because he brings up the point of saying that both of the worlds were destroyed. Yeah. I'm kind of pegging off of Martin's notes here, but my thought is that he is a version of Alexander Luthor Jr., who played a big part in Crisis in the comics, son of Lex and Lois.
Oh.
And he played a big part in the Crisis on Infinite Earth. And villain, but he had villains and superheroes played a part in that Crisis. So my thought is he is from a world that was collapsed in Crisis, and he is aware of who Superman is because of he's had experience with Superman, but this is a different Superman. So he's got to deal with how powerful is he, how is he doing. So my thought is he is in the Luthor line, but he is not Lex. So, we'll see how it goes. There's a TV Line article that brings up information and says basically, you've had John Cryer on Supergirl. He did a great job, but our show's different. We want to tell a new story, and basically says you're not going to have to wait for real long, because in the second episode you get more information on Captain Luthor. So, but this is my thought is he is a version of Alexander Luthor Jr.
Interesting.
I like that idea. I mean, that's fun. It's very similar to what I was about to say, but I'm glad you led with that, because that is a fun, plausible idea, that it is a descendant of Luthor, I guess you could say. Now, I'll just go off my idea here as speculation, because that's what this is great about this episode. We finally get to our big WTF moment of what we can get into here. And this Captain Luthor states, where I come from, let's just say the two of us have history. And then he goes on to say, my world was destroyed, but I survived. So I was thinking about where I come from, the two of us have history. What if this is Lex, but from another Earth. Like you said, Jeff, is where I'll jump on your bandwagon. It was destroyed during the crisis because there was hundreds and hundreds of Earths. And
That's true.
his Earth had its own version of Superman, and he was just another Lex. The same Lex that we've always known, fighting his version of Superman on whatever Earth it was that they're from. Now, somehow he survived and made it to this Earth, you know, and like I said, I'm not sure what Earth we're on right now, but he wants to test this Superman because it's the same Superman, and that's why he's testing him. He wants to see how strong this Superman is, how far along the Superman is in the story, because he's used to fighting Superman, and that's why he has the suit. That's why he survived. So that's my first big theory, is he is a Lex from another. I mean, we saw the trademark bald head, and
True.
you know when you look at, what's that?
Said true.
Yeah. So is it a new version of Lex, which is cool, and when you look up IMDb and see the actor that's playing him, you're like, oh, well, that's a different Lex than we've ever had before. This could be interesting. So that's one theory, and I think it could swing either way. Now I had a third one, which is maybe a bit more of a stretch, but we saw Jordan playing a video game called Injustice, and that gave me this idea, because I play an open world video game on the computer called DC Universe Online. And you get to create your own superhero and then run around in the DC world, and all the major characters are in there acting as your mentors to learn from. Flash, Superman, Wonder Woman, they're all in there. Now, in the story of that game, Lex is a hero on his Earth, and the Justice League is evil. But they're only evil because an alien plague insect invades and infects all of the superheroes, turning them evil. And Lex is just fighting the good fight, trying to save his planet, but he loses the battle and opens up some type of time dilation wormhole thingy and comes to our Earth and finds out that the same plague of bugs is headed here. So he connects to Superman and the League and offers to help the League save their planet, but of course they don't trust him. And that's where the story of the game begins. It's this great big opening cinematic, and if I can find it, I'll play it for you guys on our Facebook page. So I thought, what if this story we're getting in this show is a take on that idea? That this Lex Luthor is from, he's from his planet who got destroyed, and he's here, but maybe he doesn't know that this Superman is good. Maybe he thinks he's already evil, and he's testing him. Or he's testing him to find out if he's going to be strong enough to help him fight against this, plague. I mean, it's a stretch, but I just thought of the idea because of the video game. So there you go. Two theories for you.
Those are all good theories. I clearly didn't have any. I just had lots of questions. So that was fascinating for me to listen to.
If I can find I'm sure it's got to be on YouTube. I'll find it and send it to you guys, and I'll post it on the Facebook page. It's a great cinematic. It's one of those really cool CGI movies, and you get the whole story. It's like, oh, fascinating.
Nice.
Good ideas. And I mean, Jeff, you might be the one that's more bang on because you've got some history or character history there. So let's see.
All right. Well, that officially brings us to the end of our notes, unless there's anything else you guys want to talk about. We do have some more things we're going to talk about in our favorite scenes once we get there, though. So,
favorite scenes, you said? Let's do that.
Shape out and eagle!
So this is one of the changes that we're going to do. We're looking at Tomorrow's Legend podcast because we're expanding and growing, and we thought let's change things up a little bit. Instead of doing our quote of the week where we pick a bunch of them and you guys vote on them, it was fun, and we thank all you guys that did a lot of the voting, but we never really got a lot of voting. We had hoped that it would be a really popular thing where we would get like 30, 40, 50 kind of votes, and we always got 7 to 10 kind of votes, and it was fun. But I think going 6 years into the show now, we wanted to do a little bit of a change up and draw from how we did our Stargirl coverage, where we just pick a favorite scene to play. And we've got 3 of us hosting this show now, so we're going to have 3 favorite scenes to get to play. And we thought that there's going to be discussion around these scenes, so we'll take that discussion out of the regular talking points and save it for a favorite scene discussion. So that's kind of the new twist going forward for our show here. So let's open it up with mine. We're going to kind of go chronological order here, because this was so dramatic. And I'm going to use the opening sequence when Clark is catching us up on the whole story. They show us all the origins and the history of what he's gone through, and they link up all the previous Superman stuff, and then it transitions into where he's at now with teenage boys and being married and the struggle he's going through. I love that opening sequence, and I kind of edited it down to just what he's telling us. Yeah, that's the part I want to open with. So here it is.
My most vivid memories are of the days when my life changed. I remember coming to this earth, feeling the sun on my face for the first time.
Oh, Jonathan, it's a baby boy.
Hearing the voices of my parents. My mother called me their greatest surprise. And boy, there sure were lots of them. I remember loving Smallville. The people, the community, how the small things were the big things. And I thought I'd live there forever. But my father's death set me on a different path. Eventually, I moved to Metropolis to become who I was meant to be.
Here you go, friend.
Thanks. Cool costume.
Thanks. My mom made it for me.
But my most vivid memory of all was the day I met her.
Everyone in here, we're the most dependable friends the people in Metropolis have. You remember that.
Yes, sir.
Stick with Lane. She'll show you the ropes.
Lane, sir?
Who told you to wear a tie? Let me guess, Lombard? Ignore him. No, he can't get box seats to the meteors. You like baseball?
Of course. I mean, who doesn't like America's pastime, Miss Lane?
It's Lois. What'd you say your name was again?
Kent. Clark Kent. Oh. Sorry.
Never met a Clark before.
I've never met a Lois before. Actually, there was my first grade teacher, Lois Hannigan, so I guess technically... Oh, technically you'd be the second.
We fell in love. I told Lois who I really was, where I came from. We married, got our first place together. The twins came, and they were as different as brothers get. Jonathan was easy, always happy, always smiling. Things with Jordan were more challenging. Tantrums, night terrors. A year ago, he was diagnosed with social anxiety disorder. And suddenly, here I am, living in Metropolis, raising 2 teenage boys, married to the most famous journalist in the world, trying to make the world safer for the people I love.
Yeah, I liked the fact that we got Clark's point of view here of him narrating his story, of him bringing us into the narrative and giving us a view of what's going on and how things played out in this reality. It made it a whole lot more personal than maybe having a narrator or somebody else do it.
That's a really good point. I hadn't thought of that. But yeah, I mean, I loved this opening sequence. It was beautifully shot. It tells you everything that you need to know. I mean, it was great. And it really does set the tone. I really can hear that. I mean, after hearing it, I don't know, this is probably a 3rd or 4th time at this point. But yeah, it really does set that tone. I love that about it.
Yeah, it's great what you said about it. Having Clark be the one that catches us up, it immediately connects us to him. And this is our Clark Kent right now, going forward, forever how long this show is. This is our Clark Kent, and it just immediately attaches you to him and his voice and the way he expresses. And I'll bring it back to when I was talking about how great I think he is. I loved his portrayal of both sides of it, and just hearing him, he sounds so. Maybe it's weird to say. He just sounds so human. He's got feelings to share, and he's dealing with stuff, and you could hear it in his voice as he's telling the story of how much his life has meant to him so far. I just loved it.
Yeah.
Jeff, I believe yours is next up in line. What's your favorite scene?
So it was the real world talk. And I really appreciated this. The whole quote, no one ever dreams about the problems, but everybody has them, even the extraordinary ones. Just the whole mentality of who this is and who these two are, of grounding us and making it real that these aren't people living charmed lives. They're living everyday lives. They just have this extra effect of superpowers. And so I really appreciated just a real conversation, the husband and wife conversation. What are we going to do next? And expectations versus reality of looking at, okay, he's not quite middle-aged, but like living with, you had these dreams, these thoughts, these plans. Let's adjust them to how life is really going. And it makes it so much more relatable to everybody to see maybe a death of a dream and the opening of another one. So it just, once again, grounded this in reality and made it more real to me.
Yeah, well, I'll play the clip right now, and Harley can share her thoughts after. This one is called "No One Dreams About the Bad Stuff."
You thinking what I'm thinking?
Jonathan must have somehow shielded them both.
You saw how confused they are. They need to know the truth.
What's the truth going to do to Jordan? It's hard enough on him having a brother that everything comes easy to, but having one that has powers, like Superman?
We don't know what he can or can't do yet. And yes, it will be hard for him, but he will have his family there to help him figure things out. Like he does right now.
I can't lose him, Lois. I can't. He's pulled so far away from me already.
When we were dreaming about having a family, it didn't look like this, did it? Didn't have lost jobs or teens with severe anxiety or parents gone too soon. No one ever dreams about the problems, but every life has them. Even the extraordinary ones.
Yeah, I had to play that whole conversation just because of the music and
yes,
that. Yeah, it's just, it's their life together like we've never seen it before. They're dealing with financial problems, being parents, disagreements, being domestic. And again, it grounds the show. That's my catchphrase this episode. It makes us realize that there is life responsibilities for Clark, for Superman, and how difficult it must be to juggle all that while he's saving the world. And just seeing these two sitting on the back porch on a farmhouse out in the middle of Smallville, it's just like, whoa, that's Superman? Holy, like it's crazy. It just, I don't know. This show grabbed me, and it grabbed me really tightly. I am hooked, line and sinker, all the way in on this one.
Yeah, no, this was a fantastic scene. If Jeff hadn't picked it, I would have. I loved it. I loved the realism of it. I loved the words that she said. I mean, no one ever dreams about the problems, but every life has them. Nothing has ever been truer. Life is never what you think it is going to be. But it all works out. It all finds a way to work.
And then you add in there what Martha had on the wall. It all went by so fast. Like, yeah,
it does.
Life is flying by, and you got to wake up and realize some of these things. So, the show as a whole, if you're watching it with your family, this really can help you see things differently too. That's how good the writing has been already.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good show.
All right. Now yours, Harley.
Yes. Well, my scene, I think, literally comes on the heels of this scene. because it was such a great moment. And this is when Lois begs Clark to focus on his family and basically stands up to him and her dad and puts her foot down and is like, no, you are staying here. So I have a few more thoughts, but it'll probably make more sense after we hear the scene again real quick.
Here's the clip. This family needs you.
Whoever did this knows who I am.
He's studying you, Clark. Well, I'm sure there's a phone booth in this podunk town where you can suit up.
Now? No.
Lois.
I get it. There is a powerful something out there that doesn't like Superman or nuclear power plants, and that is a bad combo. But now is not a moment Clark can just take off. His mom just died. I mean it, Clark. The world will always need Superman. And when there is a problem, you will be there for them. But right now, this family needs you more.
She's right, Sam.
I tried to warn you, Lois. When you wanted to get married, I tried warning you. You may have fallen in love with Clark Kent, but you married Superman. And Superman doesn't get to have a normal life, no matter how much you want one for him. Or yourself.
Whoa. Heavy.
Yes.
Heavy.
Yes. But isn't that like the ultimate conundrum? I mean, how do you really deal not only with being Superman, but marrying Superman? Could you imagine? He's always going to have these two obligations. He's got the one to humanity and the one to his like own family. And this situation, I completely side with Lois. I mean, I can't even imagine how difficult it would be to try and parent two teenage boys with someone who can't be there. And as understanding as you may be about that, that cannot be easy. So at this point, no imminent danger. It was right for Clark to stay and focus on his family. I mean, later in the episode, you see him, she tells him to go and he goes, when we see the big fight. But I don't know. I agreed with her in this instance. He needed to be there.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's such a tough scenario and a tough situation, but you try to liken what's it like to be married to Superman, like what's it like to be married to a big time movie celebrity or even like a fireman, because of a replacement when they have to suddenly go at the drop of a dime to rush to an emergency and their lives are in danger. I think that's probably the biggest similarity to it, because you never know what's going to happen. And when you put it on Superman's case, he's going to have superpowered beings coming after him, and you just don't know what he's going to deal with. So it just keeps adding up on top of each other, the dangers of being with him. So I agree with Lois, but her dad does have a point too. You married Superman, so this comes with the territory. That he's not wrong in that point. Emotionally, you side with Lois, but realistically, you've got to give him a nod too, because But it was good for Clark to understand the moment of time. He's like, okay, nobody needs me immediately. My family does, though, so I'm staying.
Yeah.
Or he just bows to her. Oh, well, Lois is right. Like I said, she's the runs the household.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I really love the dynamic. I love just how honest they are being with their conversations and questioning things, of not having all the answers, of having to work things out. And so I just love the conversations and the writing.
Yeah.
Well, one last point I want to make here before we get into our feedback. I wanted to just talk about how the episode ended, because it had pretty much what could have been a cliffhanger. Superman getting stabbed in the chest with a dagger of kryptonite as he's falling from the sky, and his boys are in a fight and they could possibly be hurt. And it goes from that dramatic, impactful moment to him opening up, the boys are okay, and they're like, maybe we should move to Smallville and heal basically here. And the boys, I was surprised the boys were actually okay. And I love the family dynamic. They're like, we want to just tell you, we got a few hours before family dinner, give you guys a chance to go think about it and get your heads around the idea, and then we can come back and have a discussion about it. I'm like, man, that's such a great family dynamic, and that's how you should deal with things. And it gives them It's like Lois and Clark immediately learned their lesson from keeping the Superman secret from them. Like, all right, let's tell the boys right now, give them some time to deal with it, and then we'll all have a discussion about it. It's like great turnaround right away. And then the episode ends on a beautiful moment, you know. Come on, boys, let's I gotta show you something in the barn. Oh, Superman stuff, what? And like it was a great fun moment to end on.
Yeah.
with the Lex Luthor stuff too. Then we go to the Lex Luthor ship, and you know, that's a whole different thing. But
No, those are excellent points. I like how they wrapped it up and brought the family dynamic full circle. The family's moving to Smallville. They've learned that their dad is Superman. They've all sort of patched things up and are coming into a more cohesive family unit. So I like it.
Yep, definitely.
All right, so we've got something we got to talk about here, guys. Our show is growing. We're expanding. We brought on Jeff to help us out, and we're taking on 3 shows. It means we got a lot more to do, and it's going to take up a lot more of our time. And we've talked about it behind the scenes about our Patreon account, and we're going to start reminding you guys a little bit more about it, because we would love it if you guys could support the show. And I want to bring it up in a way that is as nicely as I can, or we have a lot of tiers on there, $1 and $2 and $5 or whatever. And I know out there a lot of people spend $1, they spend more than that on a coffee every single day, no matter what they're doing. And we're asking for your support for $1 a month. And that's kind of the point I want to enforce here, that if we could get half of our listeners to throw $1 a month towards us, it would help the show so much with the covering of costs to run it and things like that. And I also want everyone to look at it as you're not paying to listen to a podcast, because podcasting is a free medium. You're not paying to listen to a podcast. What you're doing is you're supporting a show that you enjoy. You're supporting us and our time and our effort and everything we put in the show. And that's kind of how I want you guys to look into it. And I wanted to just let you guys know about the Patreon, where we're trying to figure out some new things that we can do for it. Now that we've got Jeff on board, we're looking at doing a once a month call-in show for Patreon supporters only. You know, we've got the swag on there already. So once you reach a certain level of support, you'll get a free t-shirt or whatever kind of things we come up with. But we want to start doing more on Patreon, where you get to hang with us. If you're supporting us, then you get to have a special moment or some time with us where it's just all of us, a very intimate experience. And, you know, we might do like a 5 for 5 thing. You guys get 5 questions to ask us, or, you know, whatever. I don't know. We're working on that, but I think that's how I wanted to present it. Did you guys have anything else you want to add to that?
No, I mean, I think that was well said.
Definitely. Yeah.
Okay. Well, in order to support us on Patreon, listen to this. We've got a special clip for that, and here you go.
If you'd like to support our podcast, you can do so at our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/tomorrowslegends.
Simple as that. Let's get to our feedback.
Planetary powers, activate!
What have our fans come up with, do you think, for this premiere? I'm very excited to see.
I am too. I'm excited to see who we got in.
Yes.
And it's kind of funny because Mr. X-Force 11 is usually the first one out of the gates for feedback. And now he just has to sit here and wait.
Yeah, I know. It's weird not to see your name on the list, but I have your nice smiling face here. So,
although I've got a friend of mine back from the Smallville days that I'm trying to recruit her into giving feedback, but she's not going to get to watch until this weekend. So I said, send it in. We'll play it at the beginning or read it at the beginning. But
exactly.
Yeah.
Send it in. Yeah, we did not mention that, but if you have late feedback or feedback from old episodes, we will play that at the beginning of our next show.
Right. All right, let's kick it off with a voicemail from our dedicated friend, Carrie Johnson.
Hey, Flash, Harley, and X-Force 11. It's Carrie here with some feedback for the Superman and Lois pilot. Wow, man. What an epic and fantastic way to start a series. It was cinematic. It had the right amount of action, which looked great. It set up so many great story arcs, which a pilot is supposed to do. And it was fun, and it was nice to see. And we have a Superman and Lois all about hope and it's just great to see. I know we oftentimes give ratings for an episode, so let me go ahead and get it out of the way. I'm gonna give this episode a 10, because who says you gotta hold on and say, no, I'm only gonna give it a 9.5 or 9.8. The episode was freaking perfect. I mean, it had everything that a pilot needs to have, should have, and supposed to have. So why am I gonna hold back, right? Not to say that it can't get better in terms of when the season goes on, but for this one, I'm giving it a big old fat freaking 10. I'm sort of doing this off the cuff, so I didn't really make a whole lot of mental notes. But one of the things I really appreciated about this show so far is that oftentimes we see shows that sort of have like contrived sort of issues or concerns or confrontations, whatever the case may be. But if you look at it on its face, everyone in the episode had a legitimate point or a legitimate concern or a legitimate issue from their point of view, and they were all valid. There was no sort of eye rolling or groaning about someone when they had a point to make. Whether it was Clark not wanting to tell the boys about him being Superman. Yeah, you might say, well, he probably should have done it sooner, but I can certainly see his point for why he didn't want to. And I can see Lois's argument about why she wanted to do it soon so that they could not necessarily get it out of the way, but so that they could deal with it as family. I see both of their points of view. I even see the point from General Sam Lane when he was talking to Lois about, hey, you fell in love with Clark Kent, but you married Superman, and Superman is a resource to the world, and she has to sort of deal with and cope with, yes, I want him to be my husband, I want him to be a father, I want him to be a family man, but I have to share him with the world. We've seen Superman in so many iterations, Clark Kent in so many iterations, but one thing we haven't seen, and I know that this has been hammered home by all of the folks who are behind the show, but we get to see a Clark Kent, we get to see a Superman and Lois who have been doing this for a little bit of time and are comfortable in their skin and are having to deal with legitimate family problems and community problems. And one of the things I really do appreciate about this show is that it sort of feels like it's certainly based in the world that we live in now. So many of our shows sort of feel like they are definitely in a fantastical world, but the issues and problems that Clark and Lois are going to have to face are problems that people in this world have to deal with. The dying of small towns, raising kids in an age where anything and everything that they do is subject to feedback from someone because it's on social media or it's just in the community. I mean, when Clark was growing up in Smallville, something happens to him and you can sort of brush it away or no one's really paying attention. Sure, they might be living in Smallville, but Smallville, like every other place in the world, is connected because of social media, and they're going to have to deal with all that. So I'm just really excited about what this show can do. It's shown already the heights that it can reach, whether it's cinematography, with acting, with storylines, with dialogue. I mean, it was just like I said, it's a 10 out of 10 for me. I'm really interested to get into the story of Captain Luthor. I kind of sort of feel like he is probably one of two things, or an amalgamation of two things. He's probably, obviously, I don't even know if he's Lex Luthor, but he is apparently a Luthor in my mind from maybe another universe. And he may even be a Luthor who is also from the future. It could be a combination of both. And sure, Clark and Superman and Lois are going to have to deal with a lot of problems that they cannot punch themselves out of. And it's always nice to see Superman having to grapple with those kinds of stories. But it's also nice to see that he's also going to be going up against someone who certainly got the better of him and can physically go with him toe to toe. So you get the best of both worlds. I know I'm rambling a bit, but let's just say I'm really happy about this pilot. I'm really happy to see where this show goes, and I'm looking forward to following this journey with you guys and the rest of our fellow, I don't know if we're calling them Smallvillian, Superman and Lois or whatever we want to call it, but I'm looking forward to this ride. I look forward to hearing what you guys have to say about the episode and what everyone else has to say. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.
That's a great question. I mean, this is the Tomorrow's Legend show, so we are still Legendaires, but we could have an offshoot nickname. We'll have to think of that. Because we didn't come up with one for Stargirl.
No, we didn't. I've been using the hashtag like Stargirl or Superman and Lois. Yeah. Whereas like when I post legend stuff, I mean, I also use the Legends of Tomorrow hashtag, but I do use hashtag Legendaires as well. So that's fun.
Well, let's leave it up to our listeners. Think of a catchphrasey kind of name for Stargirl people and for Superman and Lois people for the show, just for some fun. Mm-hmm. I sense a theme here. In a lot of the points that just came up with him, he kept bringing it back to how it's a homegrown, grounded family type of show. I sense everybody's going to be feeling that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome sure. Stuff. Well, X-Force, let's throw you into the fire here. We'll let you read your very first email on our show because I believe this one ends with a question for you. So you might as well take her away.
All right. This one is from our friend Dreamweaver. And Dreamweaver says, "Hello, Flash, Harley, and X-Force 11. Ah, new superhero TV. Isn't it wonderful? And to think that was a CW I just watched. I know it's funded by HBO Max as well, but it nearly broke my brain watching this level of production quality coming from a CW show. I know it costs more money because it requires different cameras, but gosh, why can't every TV show be shot in widescreen?"
Here.
Yes, indeed. Right from the start, this show was already exceeding my expectations, which before they released the trailer were honestly a bit low. As soon as I saw the look of and the effects of the spaceship brought baby Kal-El in that opening montage, I knew it was going to be good.
Wow, that's like the opening second.
Yeah. This felt so mature. The conflicts and the drama so naturally and actually engaging. Martha's death scene and Clark's silent reaction to it was so tough to watch. It hit so close to home.
Yeah.
The whole underlying concept through this pilot of moving back to your hometown after a parent's death and reconnecting with the family really hit close to home. So I was pretty drawn into this episode.
Yeah.
I love the scene where Jordan and Jonathan find their dad's spaceship and Jordan pulls out the key crystal and the subsequent scene of the reveal of Clark as Superman. I think that the coolest scene in the episode, though, is Superman's fight with the Stranger. They literally circled the world and then fought in space. Oh man, the shots of them in space above the earth were so cool. And it being intercut with Jordan discovering his powers was very dynamic and powerful.
Damn right.
There are some mysteries brewing in Smallville. One of them seems to follow them from Metropolis, and I'm actually interested to see what's going with both the Stranger, a Luthor from there perhaps, and with Morgan Edge. It feels as though both Clark and Lois will have an antagonist for the season, along with nagging two teenage twins with different personalities and superpowers.
Woo!
It'll
be a lot.
That's a lot.
It's really interesting to see that they're tackling issues such as anxiety, depression, and suicide with Jordan and Sarah. those are really important topics, and I hope they address these things well and do them justice throughout the show.
She's right there with you, Jeff. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. Thought it was funny to see that Injustice 2 exists in this universe. There were so many Easter eggs in this pilot. Some of the favorite were the green car save at the beginning, the names Siegel and Schuster, Donner and Reeve being on the whiteboard at the Kent house, and the Hudson power plant, which was the quote unquote birthplace of Firestorm in the comics. I love some good Easter eggs and comic book nods. So this episode, chock full of them, was totally delivered.
Yeah.
Totally delivered. Yeah, definitely.
It was fun.
I have to admit, I'm not the biggest Superman fan. And here's some further fighting words. But I think Superman is rather overrated character, especially when there's so many other DC characters I want to see and get some love in the real action, live action realm. Agreed. But with that being said, the pilot was excellent. The technical production aspects were astounding. It looked like a movie. In fact, I'll go as far as saying that it looked better than most DC movies I have seen. And I hope the quality can continue through the whole season. I believe it's only 15 episodes, so that should help with the consistency.
Let me just interject for a sec there. I am with her. Like, I've always enjoyed Superman, but as a comic book fan, I've always felt he's too much of everything. He has every superpower. He has every, like, he's too good, too well-rounded. It's like, how can you possibly write any villains for him? Because he's got everything: heat, cold, strength, invulnerability, super speed. I mean, it's like he looked at every other superhero and said, I'll take that, and I'll take that, and I'll take that. And, you know, like, so I agree with her there. Like, but again, he's iconic. He's been around one of the longest, and it's, you know, but they did, again, it comes back to the show doing such a good job of grounding it and making him feel like this is a real person in our world that just happens to have powers. And I agree with her. It's this opening episode I already like better than some of the DC movies. Not gonna lie.
All right, back to Dreamweaver. They had creative uses for the powers, like when Superman creates an iceberg to cool down the nuclear power plant, and when he stopped himself above the car just before crashing into the ground after that final fight.
That was funny. The kid just waves.
You can already tell that there's going to be a strong focus on characters, and that the story and the plot is fully entrenched in personal stakes for these characters, and hopefully it won't feel separate and ham-fisted as some plots have been in other seasons across the Arrowverse. Which, on that note, this pilot did not reference or give any kind of indication, aside from Tyler Hoechlin and Elizabeth Tulloch's reprise of the respective roles, that is connected to the greater Arrowverse. I know it is, especially since we know Diggle is set here sometime down the line.
Oh, yeah.
But I wish there had been a mention of something from the other shows, or a quick cameo of a familiar face somewhere in there. Hopefully we'll get some, as I'd like to see how and where it fits into everything else.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, but I think for the pilot, you don't want to steal attention from what they're trying to present to us by bringing in somebody else. So I think down the line, it'll be better for a cameo.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm actually pretty excited about this show and just wish HBO Max could throw some money at the other DC property TV shows. I hope they keep the gorgeous cinematography that was presented in this episode. That's all my thoughts for now. Looking forward to next week as we get a new episode of this, and The Flash is back. Until next time, your friend Dreamweaver. P.S. Jeff, I've been meaning to ask, but does the Act 11 in your superhero name have any significance? Yes, Dreamweaver. I have been using the name X-Force 11 since the 90s on message boards. X-Force and their earlier iteration, New Mutants, were the comics that I first started reading. And you throw in the 11, which is the month and day of my birthday, and you get my username there. So it's kind of a mashup of the two. So I didn't have to worry about doing X-Force 01 or 001. I just threw in the 11 in there and went with it.
Awesome. That's cool. It's good to have a little bit of
Nice.
history on our origin stories.
Yep.
That's true.
Thanks, Dreamweaver. Glad to have you aboard.
Mhm.
As always, good stuff there. Next up is a voicemail from Patty Spivot.
Hey, Flash, Harley, and X-Force 11. It is Lisa calling in, aka Patty Spivot, I guess. I just wanted to call in and thank you guys for doing the podcast about this show. I had actually been feeling really overwhelmed with all the TV shows on my list, and I wasn't going to watch this, but of course, Flash sat down and was ready to watch it and was really excited about it. So I thought, I'll give it a shot. And I ended up really liking it. The characters were really engaging. The story was awesome. It grabbed you right away. The effects were wonderful. The bad guy was scary and ominous. Everything about it made me want to watch the next episode. So I'm pleasantly surprised and really looking forward to the season and this new show and of course the podcast. So thanks again, and we'll talk to you next week.
See, her reluctancy, I won out over that. It surprised both of us. It really did. I mean, I was looking forward to it just because of the trailer, but man, yeah, at the end of that, we just looked at each other and we're like, wow, that was really good. Holy.
Was good.
Awesome stuff. Thank you, Patty. All right, Harley, take this email from Bianca. It's yours.
All right. Hey, team. Here's my quick feedback for the premiere episode of Superman and Lois. The quick and condensed story of Clark and Lois was nicely done, easy enough for anyone to just jump on board without having to have watched any of the other Arrowverse shows so far. The homage to Action Comics #1, the suit and the car color, was fantastic. How great did that suit look too? Even with the trunks and the belt, so good. Chef's kiss. The boys. So far, I really like the casting of them. Jordan seems a lot like Lois, inquisitive and won't let things go. Good point. And Jonathan seems more like Clark with his more happy personality.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm not a gamer, but I chuckled when I saw that Jordan was playing Injustice 2 with Raiden and Superman. Martha, losing her so early. That was really rough. Kudos to Tyler for this scene. Got me crying right along with him. Also, her acts of bailing out other folks. Wow, that floored me. Talk about selflessness.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Lana and her family. Her husband seems kind of douchey. The oldest daughter, Sarah, I really like her. Lana herself, she appears to be what I expected. Okay. The barn incident. I have to say, Jonathan didn't hesitate 1 second when he realized what was going to happen. Not sure if it's just instinct to protect his brother or a bit of heroism or both.
Yeah, I want to touch on that. I really love that scene too. He did not hesitate at all. Same with the fight at the quarry there. As soon as he realized his brother was in trouble, boom, he's in there. And it just, yeah, I think it's just, he's protective because he knows his younger brother is, well, I guess not younger, they're twins, but his weaker brother is, needs help in those situations. So,
yeah. Finding the ship and the confrontation. So well done. The ship giving Jordan some kind of key or control crystal. Amazing. The boys confronting Clark and his display for them, topped by their reactions. So good. Hella impressive. I was very surprised that Jordan kissed Sarah, but I guess we needed something to set off events for his stress-induced powers manifestation, quote unquote. Also, the revelation that it was Jordan, not Jonathan, who protected them in the barn incident. Nice reveal. Lastly, I really like the relationship between the brothers. Overall, I really enjoyed this premiere. I'm going to give it 8.75 mysterious Captain Luthors. Until next week, Bianca.
Awesome stuff, Bianca. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It seems so far everyone is really on board with it and enjoying how this premiere launched off.
Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. Thanks for being with us. We haven't heard from Bianca in a while.
No, we haven't. So I'm happy to hear from her again.
Yeah,
Yay.
Definitely.
All right, last up is a surprise voicemail from someone we have never heard from before, but you guys all know his voice. It is D. Vizsla from The Mandalore sending in some Superman feedback.
Hey there, Flash, Harley, and X-Force 11. This is your good pal D. Vizsla from the Mandalore podcast. Thought I'd call in and offer my thoughts about the pilot episode of Superman and Lois, which gotta say is probably one of my favorite pilot episodes that I've ever seen. Easily the best pilot episode of the Arrowverse, even though I really do like Arrow and Flash. But man, this one it was pretty incredible. First off, Superman is by far my favorite superhero. I've always gravitated towards Superman. A lot of my friends have always been Batman fans, but Superman has been it. Smallville is one of my all-time favorite TV shows. So to get another Superman TV show was very, very exciting. We've been, introduced obviously to this Superman in the Supergirl series, which I was keeping up to speed on. I'm a little behind on there, but I do enjoy the Supergirl series. So I do like this Superman, and I do like where they're going with this story. So first off, the pilot episode overall was honestly in the very first 5 minutes or so, as we're talking about the backstory, gotta say I was a little emotional, a little teary-eyed seeing Jonathan pass. And just all the feels, Superman is such a grounded human story. A man, an alien that's a human, raised as a human, and has these extraordinary powers. And no matter what happens, he's always trying to do good. And that comes from, Martha and Jonathan. And they captured that in such a short period of time in the front of this pilot episode, because we didn't have to see the whole story again, right? We all know Superman's story from either Smallville or the films, the Man of Steel films or the Christopher Reeve movies. It doesn't really matter. We have those stories. And to summarize that in such a short period of time was pretty incredible. It's a very unique story, with two sons. In the comics right now, Superman does have a son, but we've never seen him with twin sons. So this is a unique story, and I'm glad they're able to do it. Now, I don't want to keep this too long, but I think the one thing that I do question is I'm a big person about continuity. And I went back and was skimming through the Crisis episodes from last year, and I'm trying to figure out where or when this takes place. Because at the end of the Crisis episode, I think it was the 5th episode, Superman's flying around and Lois calls him and says, hey, you got to come home. The boys need you. And he kind of says boys, like he doesn't know he has 2 boys. Because in the beginning of the Crisis is when they had the single son, Jonathan. They didn't have twins. So it got rewritten, obviously, that he has twins, and they're either aged up already or we're 14 years into the future now from that point, which is fine. I can live with that, but I'm wondering how that's going to work with the crossovers. If they do another crossover, which I think there's rumored to be some crossovers going on with Superman and possibly Supergirl, or even with the Flash. So I question that, or, Flash and I were texting each other that this could be a whole different Earth, which actually I'm okay with also. So either way, I just hope they identify that and let us know, because hopefully they thought about that. But it'd be weird if this was Prime Earth still, and it's the same time that we have with Flash and Supergirl and Legends and stuff like that. So I'm a little confused by that, but I think they hopefully will figure that out. So other than that, I think it was a fantastic episode. I think they casted really well with the kids. I'm partial to. I'm actually a fan of Emmanuel Shrieky, who is actually playing Lana Lang. We actually share a birthday together, so I'm a big fan of hers actually. So really cool to see her back in there. I think there's going to be something there with that development there with Clark, and it's just really cool that they're bringing this back to Smallville. So it's almost basically a Smallville show, the Next Generation Smallville show, which I think is going to be really neat. So now the big baddie at the end, of course, Lex, all kinds of questions there. Understand that it's probably a Lex from a different Earth. So it makes sense that they're sticking with the Crisis episodes and storyline, but really happy that it seems all new and unique and different. But by far, love the outfit. I think it's a new suit, great looking suit. I think he's playing a really good Clark and Superman. It's all around right now. I'm very, very impressed. Can't wait to see more, and can't wait to listen to the episode and see what you guys think. Thanks. Take care. As always, this is the way.
Yes.
Nice.
I love it. Yeah, he was all nervous. He's like, I've never sent feedback in before. Tell me if it's okay.
You never sent feedback, David. You're a podcaster.
Yeah, he's been doing Inside the Force for a long time, like 7 or 8 years or something or more. I can't remember. Yeah.
So he took the opposite route as the three of us. We started as feedbackers to become podcasters, and he's just been podcasting this whole time. Yep. And now just decided to send some feedback. Well, cool.
You did good, buddy. You did good. It's great to hear your voice on here as a feedbacker and share your thoughts. Yeah, and it's kind of funny. He dives right into the whole Crisis thing, and everybody's confused about it. But hopefully our discussion kind of came up with a few possibilities and ideas, and we'll see.
Hope they explain it. Or at least allude to it. I don't care if it's 2 lines of dialogue. Please just give us something.
Yeah. But I think the 14-year gap, I mean, it might not even be, if what he says is correct, that Lois calls him and says, you got to get back, the boys need you. They could be any age at that point of the message. They could be babies. They could be 7 years old and they need their dad. So we really don't know how many years ahead we are right now.
Yep.
If at all. I don't know. And it's I don't know. We'll see. I really hope they do something with Crisis.
Awesome stuff, though, everybody all around. Thank you for sending in feedback and continue to do so as the show grows. We want you guys to be there with us for the entire new journey. So in order to do that, just listen to this.
If you would like to be a part of the show, you can send in your feedback to tomorrowslegends@gmail.com. That's spelled with 1 R. You can also reach us on Twitter at Tomorrow's Legends, also with 1 R. We'd love you to join our Facebook page at facebook.com/groups/Tomorrow's Legends and become part of the community.
And that wraps it. Pilot episode done.
Pilot done.
Well, this was a lot of fun, X-Force. I'm so glad to have you with us. You had a lot of great insight, as we knew you would. You kind of just slid in with greatest of ease like you've been here the whole time.
Yep. I enjoyed it. It's great being here.
Awesome.
Yay.
Yeah.
It's fun to have a third voice on here. It's probably going to make us a little more long-winded, but
yeah. Well, we got the first one on the bell, that pilot episode, first one, 3 of us working together, so this one may have stretched on a little bit, but you know what? It's a good discussion, and I think we'll find our groove as we go forward.
Yep.
For sure. But no, it's really good episode. I think overall everyone's quite happy with it, and great success to start off with, not even just by us and the fans, but you look at the numbers, so they can keep it up. I think the CW has a new massive hit on their hands, and I think it's a great spiritual successor to Arrow, the one grounded, serious TV show.
Yep, definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so what's up next? We've got titles for the next 2 episodes?
Yes, the next 2 episodes are Heritage and the Perks of Not Being a Wallflower.
That's
Okay.
funny. Isn't that a book, The Perks of Being a Wallflower?
Yep. Mm-hmm. And a movie, I believe. So, yeah. So,
Interesting. Well, Heritage definitely sounds like we're going to get some information, some answers. So that'll be good. I don't know what Perks of Not Being a Wallflower could mean, but hey, who knows? We'll see what happens.
Yep.
All right. That's all we got, guys. Remember to check out the Facebook page, and we've each got our own Twitter accounts. I'm at CyberTiger17. Jess?
I'm at Jess in Atlanta.
Jeff?
I'm X-Force 11.
And then there's also the Tomorrow's Legends account. So yeah, get in touch with us, guys, and we'll see you next week. This is The Flash, signing off.
This is Harley Quinn. I'm out.
Adios, y'all.
Tomorrow's Legends is not affiliated with CBS, Warner Brothers, or the CW. We're a fan-made podcast for entertainment purposes only and are part of the Cybercast Network.